guys, how you doing? I'm okay, I guess. I don't really want to talk about this video, but I've been thinking about it for 3.5 years on a daily basis. So I'm going to tell you guys today why I have been anxious for 3.5 years and how nice that has been on my mental health. It's been an absolutely lovely experience. So I don't know if you were following the channel then or not, but 3.5 years ago, I filmed a video one day kind of talking about how I thought potentially a depression was coming. All right, guys, I'm gonna get right to the point. I'm scared. I believe that a historical financial event is coming, and I wanted to kind of warn people to sort of try and get their ducks in a row and maybe what to do as far as, allocating their investments. Then what I would suggest is that we significantly, or at least in some part, reduce your exposure to risk inside of your portfolio. I never should have said anything about the investments because basically the thing that I said might happen was the exact opposite of what happened. And, who knows if time will tell if, that turns out to be good or bad, but I just should never do that because you just legitimately have no idea of what's going to happen with the market. Now, that being said, I do still feel like we are, in line for a significant economic event that isn't going to turn out very well for a lot of people in the short term. Long term wise, I see good things on the horizon, but why am I anxious and worried short term? So this is an opinion piece. If you don't want to hear some slow-talking, monotone, dude's opinion piece about what he thinks is going on, you've probably already tuned me out, and that's fine. And if you haven't and you like the video, please like and subscribe. We love it. Here's a list I put together today. And I mean, it's very simple. Why do I think this is happening? The economy was already kind of in a crazy place, and then COVID happened, and there was just overspending, overstimulation of the economy, caused a boom, especially in Canada, with real estate and a whole bunch of other things and purchasing and all of these things. But in the end, it was basically just a whole bunch of people taking on extra debt and now not being able to service that debt because interest rates sort of went up too late, in my opinion. They should have gone up at the same time that they were stimulating the economy to try and taper what was happening. So that's the root cause. What caused me to freak out was when all these online poker players I was playing with in COVID that were like other comedians basically that were living high off of CERB because they were so pumped that they were getting $2,000 a month plus making $1,000 a month, were telling each other about all their stock picks and what they were doing and how much money they were making and how they were shorting all these stocks and stuff. And they weren't asking my opinion, and I was like, oh my God, this is just absolute madness. Kind of the poorest people on the planet are gambling in the stock market, not knowing what they're doing. A lot of those people have since been wiped out, I believe. But let's talk about what I do see with my own very eyes. Maybe I'm wrong and my eyes are deceiving me or something, but these are some of the things that I've seen over the past 3.5, 4 years that are cause for concern to me. I personally believe, this is just my opinion, once again, that we are already in a recession. It's just, it hasn't been sort of a notification like, the great crash of 29 or whatever. But everywhere I look around me, it looks like everything is sort of crumbling apart and there's nothing really happening to stop it. Sure, there are some things in place, but everybody's fighting it because nobody can get along. So in my opinion, what I think we need to see And I'm not talking about a great reset or whatever, and you'll own nothing and be happy. I'm just talking about once we all can get on the same page and say, you know what, there are a lot of problems. Let's like really work together to fix them. We'll probably be better if we band together rather than just fight about different thoughts and whatever we have. There's a whole bunch of smart people that have great ideas about how we can sort of get out of this mess. Big, huge one, and this is the big one for me, is the affordability crisis. I mean, everywhere you look, everybody you talk to, they're going into more and more debt. They can't afford their groceries. They just can't afford the basic necessities of life. But at the same time, the stock market is just going like this. This year, it's been one of the best stock market years of my career, which doesn't really make any sense to me, because where are the consumers? Who's consuming all of these things? Like, what's actually happening? Eventually, and what is happening is that these are going up. They're sort of being manipulated up by stock buybacks, also, mass layoffs, cutting expenses. But eventually you run out of consumers, then companies can't make money because nobody's buying anything, and it sort of finally breaks and needs to be fixed. This is, the main issue that I see, and everybody that asks me, they say, well, what do you think? And I think, well, eventually people just aren't going to be able to afford to live. It's not like it's gotten easier since inflation's gone down, because we're still paying 30% more than we did 3 years ago, but we're not making 30% more. So that's, not helping anybody. The housing crisis, obviously homes in Canada are just out to lunch. I don't know how anybody affords it in Vancouver and Ontario. Rental crisis, I mean, people just can't afford to rent. All these landlords are, rising rents because now they have extra interest payments and extra bills, and their electricity is more, so they're charging more. Well, that just leaves less money for the consumer. People can barely afford to live, which then has obviously led to way more homelessness. I've lived in Edmonton my entire life. I've lived through '08, I lived through the dot-com thing, I've lived through oil being zero, I've lived through quite a few things. Never in my life have I seen this much homelessness at all, and that is happening everywhere that I've been in my travels over the last few years, which isn't that far, because I can't necessarily afford to go anywhere that I want. This is causing more crime. One of the huge things that's happening that is really bad, but nobody really talks about it because we're not like privy to those numbers, is that office vacancies are so high that these guys that have these gigantic loans with these banks that own these office buildings don't have any tenants to actually lease out that space. So I don't know how they're making it work, because, if you owned an apartment building that had 20% of people in there and it's lost value, and you owe more on your interest and all of these other things, I'm not sure how those just keep being sustainable. Super scary thing I saw the other day, but before that it was so annoying. You'd watch a hockey game and you'd see every single ad was only gambling. Now, a scary fact that I saw yesterday, and this is an American one, and hopefully Sean can find it, is that more Americans are spending more money on gambling than they are on saving for retirement. That's not good. I guess I don't need to say anything more than that. There's obviously a significant mental health decline. In this country, basically everybody I talk to, especially sort of in my age bracket, is just anxious as hell, super stressed, depressed, drinking too much, whatever, not taking care of their body. This is also problematic because healthcare is in obvious decline. People can't find doctors, staffing shortages, all of these other things, trying to get in for surgery. You read these stories, if you can ever get the news, about how bad things are. When you talk to people in the medical profession, they're just beat. They don't know what to do. Obviously, this is happening everywhere. So this isn't just the Canada issue. I know it feels like it, but it isn't at all. Every country had to deal with inflation. Every country overspent during COVID. Every country's got all of these issues, trying to find a way to rebound. And yes, I mean, sure, we can blame it on the politicians, and some of that blame should go on them. However, we were all trying to be in this together and probably weren't well enough prepared for something that was, potentially coming. This has caused way more global conflict. Donald Trump, it will say, because he wasn't in power, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. So there's more war, there's more posturing towards war. That's obviously incredibly terrifying, especially if we are going to go into some sort of global recession or depression. Then we're not more prone to be like, yes, let's do that, because we don't know the other way out. Interest rate hikes, obviously they had to do them because they were trying to get inflation under control. And I talked about this and saying, had they raised them at the same time that they were printing all this money, people wouldn't have gone out and borrowed so much. They wouldn't be in as much financial trouble. Then this wouldn't be as big of an issue, but they were too late to the ball. So these interest rates going up are obviously, causing a lot of problems for people that have debt or big mortgages or need to renew their mortgages or whatever. But one thing that sort of doesn't get talked about historically that much is that every time they raise interest rates like that, basically in the next 18 months that follows, it causes a recession. To get out of that, considering the situation we're in, I'm not necessarily that hopeful. And so now you're seeing these interest rates come down, but something that happened in Canada when they had announced, the last two or whatever drops, is that unemployment has gone up in the last month. So that's the exact opposite of what they're hoping to happen. Political divide, I mean, I've never seen anything like this in this country. Obviously, America is always a little bit more intense, and they're, off the charts intense. The debate is absolutely outstanding tonight. I love it. The other gigantic problem, and this is the one that I believe is the solution, is the divide in the wealth gap. It is as big as it's ever been. Charts are basically suggesting it's the same as it was right before the French Revolution. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if you don't believe history repeats itself or whatever, but there are basically 10,000 people on this planet that own more than everybody else, almost. That's not going to work for all that long, because now they own everything. And why do they own everything? Is because, especially in the States, but Canada has its own issues, is that one company pretty much owns everything with our money. So BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard are the biggest shareholders in basically every major company in the States, with the exception of a select few. With our money, they're one company. They're tied together at the hip, and they own it all. So they have access to do whatever they want and control whatever they want with these things, which is going to only cause them to get richer and their friends to get richer, because they can make deals, shuffle money around, do whatever they want, influence Congress, do all of these other things in order to make things happen the way that they want them to happen. And that's just making them all get richer and richer and richer and richer as we get poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer, and our dollars go less and less and less until eventually we get fed up. I've personally been fed up for a very long time at this. Canada's the same. We're a little bit better, but you look at telecom, we went from 3 major companies to 2. I didn't learn much in high school social studies, but I do know that monopolies are bad, and that sounds to me like you're cutting out competition and getting closer to a monopoly, which is basically just, we're going to set our prices the exact same, have terrible customer service on both sides, lay off as many people as on both sides as we can, and if you have to go over there, you go over there, because we're going to catch the people that you lose. Very simple. Small businesses, owners everywhere are struggling. You go drive anywhere, I don't care what city you live in, you watch how many shops are boarded up, how many places are for lease, you see all these people. If you talk to small business owners, most of them are going to be like, I'm screwed. This is so stressful. I'm just trying to make it work. I'm trying to grind it out, taking debt to do that. And last but not least is the fact that we have really bad access to the news. I've seen V for Vendetta before, and when you lose access to the news and there's monopolies and there's like basically just one or two or several people running the show, it generally doesn't work that well. So hopefully we have like a masked superhero or something that can come and help us out. So anyway, I'm stressed. I just wanted to get that off my chest. So this has caused problems for me in this business for the last 3.5, 4 years, because I'm trying to grow a business, trying to tell people like, you should invest your money, you should do these, you should do this. However, I have no idea, and I'm worried about the state of the economy. That being said, I kind of go back to what happened in the first 3 weeks of COVID, when the stock market crashed for like 3 weeks, crashed like 30%, and everybody was freaking out, and I was freaking out, and it sucked. And I remember once, I kind of like had a chance to sort of sit back and think, and I was like, well, everybody is in this same position. And we all know that everybody's in the same position, because nobody at that time was doing well with anything, in those first 3 weeks. So if that happens, and everybody, with the exception of, a few outliers or whatever, that maybe took some gambles that paid off, we're all going down on the same ship. So everybody is still relatively in the exact same position that they were in before. And so if you're in a strong position, you'll still be in a strong position. Just on paper, it's going to look worse. So I like to think about it like that, and then say, what can you do to prepare yourself to be in a little bit better position? As far as investing, I think diversity is key, because you just don't know, right? A lot of people can guess, the S&P 500 or, tech stocks or whatever. But who knows what's going to happen with legislation, with everything, right? So the more you have all over the world and in different industries and in different types of investments, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Matching your risk tolerance is key, because what you don't want to do is fail if there is some sort of event that has everybody freaking out. You need to stay calm. So being within your risk tolerance and being able to fight through the urge to sell everything off and put it in your mattress is also important, because that's never worked for anybody in history before either. You can, as I've talked about a million times, focus on your fees. Reducing your fees should help save you a little bit of money, should help improve your returns in the long term. Working a lot on your budgeting, checking where your money is going, finding those extra bucks by, working more, selling some stuff that you have, whatever you need to do, and getting any high interest debt you have paid down, and trying to build up an emergency fund for the just in case. And then basically, last but not least, ask a professional to help you out with these things and make sure that you're fine. So, all I can say that I've been doing for the last 3.5, 4 years is trying to protect my business from something like this. So, obviously that's impossible, but that's what I've been doing, is to say, I'm going to set it up so when we look at our client's success rate, if something bad happens, we can say they didn't get, their asses kicked as bad as other people, because we were prepared, we had a good plan in place, we knew that they could get through like certain events, whatever, and then we'll just work forward from there. And I do 100% believe that in due time, if this happens, that's the bottom. That's the worst it can get. I feel like we've been on a pretty significant downslope for a while. I feel like people can feel it. And if we hit that bottom, that means, guess what? We get to go back up. Our kids and their kids hopefully have to have a better world and don't have to deal with super stressful, periods of time like this, because it certainly hasn't been fun for me. And, I don't think it's been fun for a lot of you out there. So take care, keep well, and thanks for watching. Cheers.